All right, 99.9 Punk World Radio FM. You guys already know what time it is. And right here, we are joined by a legendary California punk rock band. We got Diesel Boy in the house. How are you doing tonight, guys?
Good. Saturday
Good.
night, man. This is a fine way of spending a Saturday evening.
I gotta say, I definitely agree with you guys on that one, man. Like I told you before we went live, been a huge fan of Diesel Boy, so honestly, this definitely just made my entire weekend. So thank you, Greg. Thank you, Dave, for a little bit of your time here this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
But I know you guys are very busy individuals, so of course I'm not going to take you away from your Saturday evening too long, but I got to take you back to the amazing year of 1993 where you guys actually came together as one to actually form Diesel Boy. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us the beginning story behind the band, and of course, how did you guys all meet and of course just come together to form this iconic band?
Well, Diesel Boy started when I was in college at Sonoma State University, which is in the wine country of California. I was DJ at the college radio station and later worked as the music director. And I found a bud in that class who was also a musician, and we had similar tastes in music. And we started a band. And we existed for a few years and had some kind of member changes. And Greg played in a band called A Scapegoat, which practiced kind of in the same practice studio. We were all friends. And at some point, essentially like half of that band joined the half of Diesel Boy that had kind of left. Both bands were going through kind of membership changes at the same time. And I think we kind of took the best things from both bands. I would say that, Greg, you can jump in here and correct me if you disagree, but I think, Diesel Boy always had pretty good songs, but, we were kind of, before we merged with the Scapegoat, we were kind of more power pop and maybe less punk, and the Scapegoat had a lot of energy and was really rocking and kind of had that side of things. And so I think once the two things came together, it sort of like was immediately apparent, like, oh, this sounds good and different than what either of us were doing, and just seemed to kind of work.
That sounds about right.
And also, as well, guys, in the mid 1990s, you guys actually got signed by Honest Don's Records. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us the story behind that record deal, and of course, how did you guys originally get discovered by Fat Mike of NoFX?
Well, through that radio station that I was working at, I had an internship at Fat during my last year of going to school there. But I was also very aware of not wanting it to seem like I had been interning there in hopes of getting a record deal, which was not the case. But at some point, once I had sort of graduated and was not working there any longer, I told Mike that I had a band. We gave him a demo. I remember being at a bracket show at a place called Bottom of the Hill, which is a place that we used to play a lot in San Francisco. And Brackett had a motorhome at the time, and he was there. And I remember, and so I gave him this demo tape, and he went into the motorhome to listen to it on cassette. And I remember, like, the blinds would open up and the guys would like peek at me sort of through the windows and laugh at me. And I don't know how many songs were on it. It wasn't a very long demo, but when it was done, Mike popped his head out and said, do you want to do a 7-inch? And of course I was thrilled. We were all thrilled because we loved that label.
That was the strap-on 7-inch.
Strap-on 7-inch, which was the title taken from the Strap-on Demo, which was the name of the demo cassette that we used to sell.
Which had a song on it called Strap It On, which never really made it past that demo, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And then, I don't know how my timeline's not so good, but at some point, some months later, we had the songs together to do a full length. We gave the tape to Mike. Mike said he liked it, but not enough to put it out on Fat, which was like a dagger to the heart. We were trying to figure out what to do and trying to figure out, should we sign to another label? What should we do? There were a few things kind of brewing. And as we were in the midst of trying to figure out what to do, Mike, called and said, hey, I don't have any details, but I want to start a second label. And, do you guys want to be the first band on it? And, it didn't take, I don't think there was really any hesitation. We were just like, okay, let's do it. And then at some point, when we were in this, so he, as soon as we said yes, he basically was like, do you want to go into the studio and make a record with Ryan Green? And of course we did, because we loved all the records he was doing, and we were just stoked to make a real record. And at some point in the process, he was like, I got it. Honest Don's hardly used recordings. Like, okay. Yeah. So that was sort of how that came to be. And weirdly,
oh, my apologies. I was going to say, I know, obviously years later, you guys actually did release something under Fat Records as well, if I'm not mistaken. But I know it was obviously some years later.
Well, it's weird if you go to iTunes, it says all those records are on Fat now, and I don't know if that's just because it's easier for them to have them there that way for some reason, or for their to it all come back, to go back to them, business wise or whatever. I don't know, but it's.
So the only record that has the Fat Wreck logo on the back is the 7-inch that we did before our first record came out. But Honest Don's was, an imprint of Fat, and all the records are still, they're out of print, but they're all, digitally, they're all available through.
It was all the same office, except Honest Don's would have had one employee,
Yeah. At the
Sounds
time,
like it was a very DIY label.
Yeah, a little bit more, they had all the resources of Fat right there, because they were in that office. But yeah, there was one person that was kind of, taking care of the
I think back then there was maybe 6 or 8 employees. It was never a huge operation. And at the time that we signed, the label was pitched to us as sort of like a label for all the stuff Mike likes that doesn't necessarily fit on Fat Records, or that doesn't have that Fat Record sound.
Yeah.
Although, he did, I think we maybe were closest. He signed a few other bands that, that were on Honest Don's that, could have fit on Fat. And some of them ended up on Fat later on. The Mad Caddies ended up on Fat. I think Chicks Dig It did a record on Fat. So, I don't know.
And also as well, August 6th of 1996, you guys actually released the amazing album titled Cock Rock. I was wondering if you could actually just tell us the story behind this legendary debut album. And of course, how does it feel to know that this album is actually 27 years old this year, man? Because I got to say, just going back and listening to that, it's one of those punk rock albums, man, that it's hard to believe and just think about, it's actually 27 years old, man. It's crazy.
It is crazy. We realized on our last weekender that when we were out playing shows that Jack, our new guitar player, is younger than Cock Rock. Greg,
weird,
what you got any memories from Cock Rock?
Just
the record.
Yeah, it was, it was 1 week, and it was a pretty intense week. It was the biggest recording project I'd ever been involved in. I'd done, lots of demos and even tons of tracking and stuff, of other things previously, but never working with a producer or whatever, and on 24 track fucking 2-inch tape, which was what they did things on back then, digital recording was new. It wasn't all Pro Tools yet. We did our first 2 records on 2-inch tape, the second 2 on Pro Tools.
Yeah, I would say, we learned a ton about how to be a real band. Ryan Green taught us about harmonies and how to do harmonies and how to edit. And he's an old school engineer. He would cut the tape. This is like Greg saying, this was all before Pro Tools. So he was, an old school producer, cutting tape. But yeah, he taught us a ton just about being professional. He was super fun to work with. He would a pain in the ass when he needed to get good performances out of us. But yeah, we really learned how to be a band, and I think learning that harmonies were important. I don't think we really had much of that before, and just understanding how to work with the producer and giving over that kind of control to a producer that you trust.
And we got to hang out. We hung out in San Francisco for a week on Divisadero during a time which was a really cool time to be there. It was a great experience.
The studio was called Razor's Edge, and it was in a house. And in the house above, the bands could stay there. But it's famous because Anne Rice wrote "Interview with the Vampire" in the house above the studio.
That's sick.
Yeah, and if you look, I don't know if it's the first line, and maybe the first line of the book, but it's like looking out the windows onto Divisadero, like something. But yeah, it was cool. Funky little studio.
Brackett's record tile novelty forever came from a thing that's in the tile work there, and it was the old entrance for a store or something, but I like the little space that they used for speaker isolation, amp isolation when they're tracking.
And I gotta say, my two favorite songs off this legendary record is "Titty Twister" and "Happy Street." Man, those are my two go-to songs.
Thank you.
But also as well, guys, because I do know that aside from the album, you also did some extensive touring all across North America. I believe those years you guys are always on the road. But another legendary band by the name of Strung Out actually took you guys on your very first U.S. and Canada tour. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a bit more about that opportunity. And of course, what was one of your most fondest memories of that particular tour that you guys can actually recall?
Yeah, it was a epic tour that has not been duplicated since. It was 9 weeks, which is a long time, across the U.S. and Canada. We learned a lot on that tour too. I mean, that was like our first real tour, and it was on a tour bus. We'd never even toured, let alone on a tour bus, which we shared with them. And I don't know what we expected or what we thought we were in store for, but those guys taught us a lot too. They were young too, but they were at least on their second album. Maybe it was their first album. I think it was their second album that was out then.
Yeah, was it that? Yeah.
But they killed it every night, and it was fun to watch them. And we were just so green, and it was sort of like trial by fire. We just were like thrown into the gauntlet and had to try and kill it every night because Strung Out did. Yeah, I mean, that's what our life became, just being on the road. But I don't think any of us knew what to expect that first tour. And I remember just pulling up into the parking lot and seeing that tour bus and being like, oh my God, what are we in for?
And I got to say as well, just being able to be on tour with Strung Out, especially on your very first tour, going all across Canada. Like, what was it? What was your time like in Canada? Because I heard that from what I understand, Canada loves punk rock. Obviously, that's where I am. I've honestly seen festivals where people go absolutely apeshit for punk rock bands, but then when they go back home to the States, people are like, meh, it is what it is. We've seen them. Like, how did Canada actually perceive your guys' music for the first time?
I remember Strung Out saying, like, wait till we get to Montreal and wait till we get to Quebec City. You're not going to believe how big the shows are. And yeah, I mean, Canada was always great for us. We did a lot of touring in Canada. I don't know if it was because we toured a lot on that first tour or if, but we did a lot of touring. We would do tours of just Canada. We would all, I don't know how many times we went across Canada. I mean, we've been all the way to, like New Brunswick. We've been far, we've been deep into the wilds of Canada. Nova Scotia. Canadian fans are always great. It's a great place. We always had good shows there. But just the size, I don't know why, but something about, Montreal, Quebec, even, Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, London, those were always really good markets, and people just came out and, they loved their skate punk there. We're psyched because in June we're going to be playing Red Bridge Fest, which is in Quebec. We haven't been to Canada, in 2 decades, and so that was always one of one of our favorite spots, and so we're super psyched to come back and play again.
You asked about favorite memories from that tour specifically, and one of my favorite memories was in Canada. It was when we played in Kelowna, right there on the lake, and like going swimming in that lake during the day was just, I don't know, it was a really great memory for me, particularly from that tour.
And Dave, when you said a few moments ago about how like when Strung Out told you just wait till you get to Montreal and see the crowd, I've always considered Montreal to be like the punk rock city of Canada, man, because it's just a whole different atmosphere, man, when you go to a punk rock show in Montreal.
Yeah, our Canadian agent was there back in the day, at least, but when we used to we had a Canadian booking agent, and they were based in Montreal. And yeah, I mean, those shows were always rad. We played Montreal a lot. And we would often have a day or two off there to stay with our agent and just hang out.
We would stay at his house, and that would be kind of the hub while we did all the rest of the Eastern Canada dates.
Yeah, Greenland Productions, which are still around, I think.
Yeah, I believe they actually are around. I've seen them on Instagram a couple times. They're still doing their thing after all these years, man. It's cool to see these amazing companies from years ago still kind of pushing forward and still doing what they do best.
Totally.
And also as well, in the year 1999, three songs off your album, Sofa King Cool, actually landed in the soundtrack for the video game Test Drive Off-Road Fury 3. I was wondering, how did that video game placement actually come to be for you guys? And of course, did you guys ever get the chance to play the game and drive off-road to your own music?
I don't know that I ever played the game. None of us are big gamers. Although in the van, I shouldn't say that, because when we were when we were in Europe, Christopher and Jack were both on their whatever those are, Twitch. No, not Twitch. What are the little?
It's the Switch.
God,
my kids have those.
Switch.
Yeah,
Switch, not Twitch.
Yeah.
Although Twitch is a video game thing too, but goddamn, I'm sounding old. They were on their Switch.
Dave, you're not cool, man.
No, I'm definitely not cool. I don't know how that came about. I honestly, I think that whoever was the music director of the studio that was making those games just reached out and asked if they could put some songs in it.
I own it. I think I've seen it played, but I've never actually played it. I never.
Unfortunately, we were an Off-Road 3 instead of Tony Hawk Pro Skater or what.
Yeah. Well, the other one was Cool Borders. That was the thing. It was like, yeah, we were on Cool Borders. We weren't on the one we were. Wait, what was the one we were on? We were on the not cool one.
I don't know.
But it was, yeah, they were all like PlayStation games, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I gamed a little back then, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe we played the game. I can't remember.
Yeah, because I do know this game was that you guys were on the Off-Road Fury. I believe it was on PlayStation. I think Game Boy as well, but I don't know if those little Game Boy cartridges could really hold the music or not. So I'm just gonna go with the PlayStation because I know you guys were on that one.
Yeah, somewhere I've got a disc of that somewhere in the basement, I think. It's all good. It all helps, Hey, I mean, more. Amen.
And especially as well too, video games like that, they especially brings bands to a whole other market as well, because some individuals might not really heard of you guys. They might not have been a punk rock fan, but then they pick up the game and they're like, man, these Diesel Boys, they're freaking awesome. You know what I mean? Next thing you know, they pick up a Diesel Boy record.
Yeah.
And that's how they first hear one of our songs. I mean, the first punk rock I think that I heard would probably have been like in Repo Man or something through a movie. It's how it gets to you somehow.
And speaking of first discovery, I was telling you guys this actually before we went live, but I discovered you guys in a television show by the name of Freaks and Geeks. But you guys also had the opportunity to appear in this cult classic television series, performing your song Moshing and Noshing, that actually aired in the year 2000. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a story behind that opportunity, and of course, what was it like just being able to be on set and be featured in this now a huge television show. Because unfortunately, it wasn't well perceived then, but now it's a cult classic.
Yeah, it actually got canceled before our episode aired. It wasn't until subsequent, so people discovered it later on that you could actually see our episode. Yeah, one of my friends from high school is this guy Jake Kasdan, who at the time was working on Freaks and Geeks, but has gone on to make a bunch of movies. He made the last couple of Jumanji movies, and he's a big dude in Hollywood. But yeah, he was working on the show, and they had an episode that needed a punk band. And so who did he call? He called his friend Dave, who was in a punk band, and said, "Hey, I'm doing this TV show. Do you guys want to be on it?" And we were like, "Yeah, of course we want to be on it." Everything about it was different from what we would ordinarily get up to on the road. I remember, the wardrobe department called and asked us for our different sizes of our shirts and pants, and we showed up to the DreamWorks lot or whatever, and it was like, went into this room and they had all this rack of 80s punk clothes, and we tried on leather pants and safety pin shirts, and they took Polaroids and dressed us, and I don't know. Then we filmed it was just one afternoon that we filmed it. It was a place called Al's Bar in LA, which is no longer there, but was like a classic sort of legendary punk rock dive bar. And we filmed the episode, and I remember it was all weird because they had paid all these people to pretend like they liked us, and there was like all these extras kind of rocking out. But I remember we ran through it once, and Jake came up to us after. He's like, "Can you guys try and look tougher? You guys look like you're having too much fun. I need you guys to look tougher." He's like, "Well, you chose the wrong band."
And did you guys get the opportunity to actually just interact with any of the cast members? Because a lot of these cast members then weren't really that big, but you had Jason that went on to do like How I Met Your Mother. You had I forget her name, so I'm going to call her Velma from the Scooby-Doo movies. You had the little kid that turned into being Sweets and Bones. Like, did you get any opportunity to meet any of the cast members of the show during your time on set?
Yeah,
Linda Cardellini, I think, is who you mean, and what's his name?
Yes, that one. Yes,
James Franco.
Yeah, I chatted with James Franco for a while by the craft table. It was just like, "Yeah, dude, I'm in a punk." I was like, "Yeah, I'm an actor." It was cool. Yeah, he did become like way bigger after that. I didn't know who he was. I don't think he was anybody at that point.
None of them had. None of them were famous then. And none of them meant anything to us. We were just sort of, hanging out where the food was or whatever.
Dudes in a punk band with a van outside. Somebody was smoking weed somewhere.
It was a fun day. It's really cool that, it's gone on to have such kind of critical acclaim and become a cult classic. It was great. It's nice to have, some small association with that show. It's great.
And I kind of wish as well that TV nowadays would incorporate, live performances and bands kind of like that. Because around this time, if I'm not mistaken, I think in 1982 they did Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place. And then obviously this isn't punk rock, but so I believe it was Backstreet Boys at some point did like Sabrina. So all these shows around the same time were kind of incorporating live performance bands into their shows. And it really helped a lot of bands actually kick off as well and get more noticed in other markets.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember we had to join the musicians union or something because we were playing on camera, and it was really cool. I mean, it was a unique experience. We had to mime when we weren't playing, when they were doing the dialogue. We had to stand up there and pretend like we were playing, when they were doing all the dialogue, and they had these punk rock extras stage diving to make sure no one got hurt. I mean, it was just a fun, different thing to be associated with. But I mean, I remember when I was a kid, there was like a punk episode of Chips, and there was I don't know, there were occasionally they had that kind of stuff too when I was a kid way back in the 1910s before TV was.
And also
invented.
As well, 2 years right after that, you guys actually decided to step away from the spotlight. I was wondering what actually made Diesel Boy decide to go their separate ways, and of course reemerge 20 years later.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question that's a little hard to answer because it wasn't really a decision that we had talked about. I think there was a confluence of stuff that was happening. So there were some members that were having some personal issues. I had taken a job at a music.com, which got bought by Microsoft, and I relocated to Seattle. And I think, one of my biggest regrets about the band is not sort of being more communicative back then with everyone about what we wanted to do. And it was I don't know. Again, it wasn't a conscious decision, but in some ways, it felt like things had maybe run its course. I think we could have probably continued doing what we were doing, but it felt like maybe we had sort of hit our peak in what we were going to do. And I had some fears of being a middle-aged dude and not having any other life skills other than singing and playing guitar in a punk band. But it definitely created some, complicated feelings for everyone for a while. Is that accurate to say, Greg? I don't know. You can give your perspective on it. That's mine.
I mean, there was a lot of reasons that we didn't get things going. We tried a few times. We had some rehearsals. I'm glad we're doing it now. I mean, it's kind of, yeah, we've had we do have some people playing like drum. We have Christopher playing drums for us and Jack playing guitar for us now, and that's because other folks were not able to come on board with this. Now that we're doing it now, that's just kind of how it is.
It's hard. I mean, it's hard. Having a band is hard, and when it's the only thing that you're doing. In some ways it's a lot easier now, or in most ways it's a lot easier now. Like we've all, we got jobs and families and, lives outside of the band. But back then that was all we did. And we were like living on top of each other all the time. And it's hard to maintain all those interpersonal relationships. Not that we ever didn't get along. We were always been friends. We're still friends. There's no bad blood between any of the previous members or any of those things. But yeah, it's hard.
And it's really hard to make the kind of living you need to make to raise a family playing in most punk
Absolutely.
rock bands. There's
Totally.
some folks that have been really successful. Mostly ones that have been doing it for years and years and years and really deserve it. That still do it and can thrive. But yeah, just kind of at that mid-level, just getting by. It's there's no health insurance, there's no retirement plan. Those
Yep.
things. In the U.S. are a thing. In Canada, it's not as much of a deal, I guess. Shit, I don't know. You guys still like subsidize your bands and artists there? I think that's amazing. I wish we were like that there, but we're not.
I believe we still do. I know as well, like they actually. I believe if you can apply for a grant with the government of Canada, and they'll actually help fund your music. I know Sum 41 has done that many times. Like the Canadian albums that actually are made here in Canada,
Yeah.
they'll actually have like the little mini like Canadian logo stamp kind of in the corner. So if you see that on an album, that pretty much means that Canada pretty much gave the band or artist a grant. Like I know some of the listeners might correct me because I don't know exactly how the process works. This might not even be called a grant, but I do know you apply for something and they might actually help you with actually the creation of your album.
Yeah, we have friends of Canadian bands that told us about that, and we're like, damn, you guys are lucky.
We did a tour with SNFU, Canadian band, who were awesome, and Chai Pig and National Treasure, one of a kind guys, R.I.P. Yeah, I'm trying to think what other Canadian band. I guess there was a bunch over the years, but I guess mostly in Canada. Gob we did some shows with, but it's nice to see that some of them are still around. And there was a bunch playing at the Redbridge Fest. I saw Extra Large and Pride Bowl and a few of the bands that I remember from back, 25 years ago that we were playing with are, either still at it or back at it again, which is great.
Yeah, when we played in Europe, we saw a lot of old friends. That's been one of the best. That was probably one of the best things about that tour was that,
Totally.
like, right when we got there, one of the first shows was Brack Rock, and we're just like people we hadn't seen in 20 years, and it was like, hey, how you doing? Oh, great. Right back in it, It's cool.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I love about punk rock today, man. It's just the fact that so many bands that I grew up listening to, like you guys, are making a comeback and getting back into it, man. It's definitely 2023 is definitely a great time to be a punk rock fan, man. Because like so many bands, like I said, are coming back and they're better than ever, man. So it's definitely phenomenal. So many bands have not lost a step.
Well, we might walk a little slower, but and maybe less jumping around on stage. But yeah, it's been fun. We're very lucky that there's still enough of an audience out there to be interested in what we're doing and to get to do this again. It's really lovely. And not that we took it for granted then, because we didn't. We were grateful then too, but it's different. I just turned 50. I got a family and kids, and to get to go be a weekend warrior and go play shows, that rules. To go to Europe for 10 days and play festivals and play to these fans who are just so happy to either see us back or who never had the chance to see us and hear all those stories. One thing that really struck me when we were over there, I think I've talked about this with you too, Greg, is that, back then we were, those records were like new records. They had just come out, but over the course of, 20 or 25 years, like they've become meaningful to people and they're important records to some people, as silly as that may sound to some. For me, it was, Motley Crue and Metallica and, whatever it was. But to some people, cock rock is that for somebody, or one of our records is that, or an important part of their sort of upbringing and their identity and who they are. And that wasn't possible to know 25 years ago. So that's pretty cool to be able to connect with people on that level. And then also to see people bringing their kids to shows. That's amazing. Like there's a dad and their teenage kids at the show. Like how rad is that? That's the coolest,
And also, you guys actually have a brand new record out that actually came out July 28th of this year, which was obviously your first album in the past 20 years, called Gets Old. Sorry, called Gets Old. I was wondering if you can actually just tell us a little bit more about this amazing album, and of course, where can we actually snag ourselves a copy of this hot record today?
Well, it is available on all the streaming services. A label called SBAM, SBAM, issued it. They're in Austria, and I think it's shop.sbam.rocks will get you to all of the various places, whether you're in Europe or Canada or the US or elsewhere. Stefan, who runs SBAM, had started getting in touch with me years ago and was just like, dude, I love your band. If you guys ever do something, I want to put out your records. And at the time, his label was much smaller. He started as a dude who was doing posters for shows and whatnot. But, as Greg and I sort of talked over the pandemic about trying to do it again more seriously, we tried a few times, as Greg mentioned earlier, like, to make a comeback record, and it just stalled out. It's hard to get the momentum going. Geographically, we don't all live in the same place. I'm in Seattle, Greg's in California. Technology has helped a lot, and we continue to kind of figure it out. But it just, when we talked about it, when Greg and I started talking about it, we were we sort of were looking at the landscape and we're like, all the bands that are playing on all these punk festivals, they're all bands from our era. Like people were still streaming the records on the streaming services. Besides Stefan, other labels would reach out and be like, hey, or you guys ever get back together? I'd love to do something. It seemed like there was still some audience, and that's amazing. When we started talking more seriously, Stefan had started to sign not only new bands, but other bands from our era. Like he's got Pulley, he's got Snuff, he's done a Bracket record, and so it just seemed like it made sense. He was very enthusiastic. He basically, met our needs in terms of a budget for the record and giving us the things that we wanted to do. And so, we took us a while to find members and to learn the songs, and we don't have the ability to practice 5 days a week like we used to. So, it was a slow process. It took us over a year to kind of, probably probably 18 months or 2 years almost from sort of when Greg and I started talking about wanting to do it again, to finding the guys and learning the songs, and then, finally making the record. But I think it came out great. We've really been happy with the response from, fans and from the press. We were laughing because, the record got some good reviews. That was never something that, I don't know. It always felt like, wait a second, people like this record? We're getting good reviews. What the hell is going on here?
And also, as well, I have to ask, guys, what is next for Diesel Boy? Because obviously, this amazing record came out in the summer. Like you said, getting a great reviews. It's charting all across the streaming platforms. I do know next month you guys are going on tour between the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 30th, playing the last shows of 2023. But I was wondering if you can just tell us, like, is there anything we happen to miss during this evening's interview that you guys still want to touch on, talk about, or promote?
Well, you hit the main. Yeah, we're doing. We've been doing these weekender runs where we go out like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and play and come home. We got a show in Seattle with MXPX at the end of the year, and we've got some other stuff coming up. Like I said, we Redbridge in I forget where it is, Pont Rouge, Quebec will be. Coming in June, and there'll be some other announcements soon with some other stuff that we got brewing. But yeah, it'll be, we're old and we're busy, and so we're not going to do big tours, but hopefully sooner or later we'll get to your neck of the woods and get slowly make our way. We've been mostly on the West Coast, but as we've been talking about some plans for 2024, we hope to hit some other spots. But that's basically it. I don't know. We'll make another record maybe at some point, but I think it would be really fun to do like a cock rock tour where we play the whole record, but we're sort of in between the 25th anniversary and the 30th anniversary. So, I don't know. We'll have to find the right time, but I think that'll be really fun. Aside from that, there was a couple of songs left over from our record that we'll put out as a 7-inch at some point. Don't have a date for that. People bug us all the time about reissuing our old LPs. Which is definitely high on our list of stuff that we'd like to do, but no concrete plans at the moment. But, a lot of stuff we want to do. It's just, we got to, like I said, we got to, one small steps. We, tackle one thing at a time. But yeah, in the next few months, we'll just be making little short trips, weekender trips, and playing some festivals over the summer. And we'll book something longer over the summer, but not sure exactly where that will be yet.
And before we part ways here, guys, obviously I know how to follow you on social media, but for the individuals that are just becoming Diesel Boy fans recently in your most recent comeback, I was wondering if you can actually just tell us your social media handles. That way we can follow you and stay updated not only on this amazing album you dropped a few months back, but of course up-and-coming shows that Diesel Boy will be a part of.
Let's quiz Greg.
I know the website is diesel-boy.com. I don't know.
There you go, and from there you can get to all of our other social media.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you that. What's the current Facebook handle, Dave? And you got to watch out.
The Instagram is _DieselBoy, and I think it's DieselBoy Official. Facebook/DieselBoy Official.
And don't confuse us with the DJ.
Yeah, there's a DJ named DieselBoy. His is one word. Ours is two. It's a long-standing, quiet feud that we've been having.
It's just
not really a feud.
It's not really. It's just a feud.
We both exist, and it sucks.
Well, I think the OGs, you guys should definitely have that name, and I think DJ Diesel Boy, which honestly kind of sounds weird, but I mean, at the end of the day, he could easily switch that name up, man.
We asked him to do that. He said no.
If you're watching DJ Diesel Boy, switch your name and give the OGs the real name back.
He's not watching it, and he's got way more followers than we do on all the social media platforms. So good for him. But yeah, back in the day when we did like your due diligence, when we first got a lawyer and when we were signing to FAT, we discovered that was this dude who had the same name as us, and except one word, but he could claim ownership to it longer where he lived in Pennsylvania or something. And we were like, well, why don't you just add a DJ in front of yours? And he said, why don't you add a punk rock in front of yours? And so, we were both broke artists, and neither of us wanted to pursue it. And we hoped that,
I do enjoy
the
watching.
market.
I do enjoy watching YouTube videos of real drummers playing drum and bass grooves. That's pretty cool.
And before we actually part ways here, guys, we just had a fan comment come in from the Lone Runner 1. He says, please, at least come back to SD. I think he means San Diego between January and June next year. I'm missing you guys in Seattle and San Diego.
We're gonna be in San Diego, but before then, it's gonna be in.
Yeah. Listen, man, be glad we're getting to San Diego at all.
December. What was it? It's like the 10th or 11th?
I think it's December 10th. I think we're playing at Brick by Brick in San Diego with a band called Versus the World, who are rad.
They're bros, cool bros though.
San Diego's great. I love San Diego. I love the weather. We did some shows in Europe with this band Urethane, who are from San Diego, and it'd be great. Would love to come down there again and play. So maybe for the gentleman or lady that is saying that, maybe we'll be back, but it's a very specific time frame. Come back between this date.
But I got to say, first and foremost, Greg, Dave, thank you so much for giving not only myself, but the radio station listeners a bit of your time. Like I said, I've been a huge Diesel Boy fan for a long time, so being able to talk with two of the original founding members was just such an honor, man. And also, I'm so glad to see you guys back and doing exactly what you guys love to do, man. I'm super stoked just to see what's next for Diesel Boy, man, because it's definitely been a long-awaited return, and I think I can speak for all punk rock fans, man, but I can definitely say it's so great to see you guys back at it and just shredding, man. So happy and cannot wait to see what's next.
Thank you. I wish all punk rock fans felt that way, but we're in a quiet.
The real ones do.
But yes,
you're very kind, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for having us, and hello to everybody that's listening out there. We are happy to be here.
See you in San Diego between January and June.
But I gotta say, again, thank you so much, guys, but definitely have yourselves a phenomenal rest of your Saturday night, and I'm pretty sure down the line we definitely shall cross paths here sometime soon.
All right, man. Cheers. Thank you. Good to see you, Greg. See you in a month.
All right, Dave. Take care.
Bye.